Are you using Claude Code to write Python? In this video, I'm going to give you 7 tips, 7 things that you should put into your Claude.md file so that the Python code that results will be as readable, maintainable, and actually robust as possible. So you can see I'm in a UV project here. I've got pyproject.toml, I've got .python version. I've not activated Claude Code yet, but I have created at least a blank Claude.md file. And this is the file that Claude Code, when you start it up with each session, reads to understand what you want it to do and what constraints to put on it. So the first thing I'm going to say is you are in a UV project. Right, we're in a UV project. UV, the whole point of UV is to replace all of those different tools that we've used in the past for handling packages. And so that means here use UV add to add new packages, not pip install, and use UV run to run things, not any of the venv tools or activate, deactivate. And don't use setuptools, right? These are kind of old, right? Instead, use UV's native facilities. Now, once I have this in here, then Claude will pay attention to it and it will behave and it'll do all the things that a person would do knowing that they have UV. All right, that's tip number 1. What is tip number 2? Use testing and TDD. So you should use TDD, that is test-driven development, at all times. Now, what does that mean? TDD has been around for a very long time, and I will be honest, I and most people I know think that is a great way to do coding, but super annoying and super frustrating. But hey, if I'm offloading the coding to Claude Code, I can be as tough as I want. And the idea is that before implementing any new feature or bug fix, add a pytest test that fails. And then after the test fails, fix things in the code so that it passes. And so this, what we call a red-green cycle, again, it's super annoying for people, but this means that every single thing will have at least one test. And aim for greater than 95% test coverage with pytest. Now, why not 100%? Sometimes there are little things that don't really need to be tested or just sort of get stuck on things. 95% though is pretty darn good. If you want to go to 100%, you should totally feel free to do that. And this means then that the tests are constantly going to be running. And we're going to know that everything at least works based on those tests. Does this mean there are no bugs in the code? Of course not. There will still be bugs, but at least they won't be at least we will have tests to make sure that they're not doing the wrong thing. Okay, so what else can we do? Typins. Now, typins are another thing that for someone like me who comes from a dynamic language background, right? I've been using Python for many years. Before that, I was using other high-level dynamic languages. And so typins have been a slow thing for me to adopt. That said, they definitely increase the robustness of your code. And if I can have Claude Code do the work, of course I'm going to do it. So I'm going to say use typins everywhere and always run mypy minus my strict to check that every everywhere that should have type checks has them. Now, why would we do that? If you just run mypy, then it checks that where you have type hints or type annotations, as they're also known, it matches up. But if you don't have any type hints, it's like, okay, I guess you didn't want to use them. And that is fine in general. But if we can tighten the screws, if we can have Claude Code do the work for us, then why not? And that combination of type hints and mypy minus my strict and TDD and pytest everywhere and high coverage means that our code, it doesn't mean there won't be bugs once again, but it means that we can sort of be more assured that our code works. What else do we want to use? You are in a Git repository. Use it. What do I mean by that? I mean basically commit every time that you fix, add a new feature or fix a bug. Better to have many small commits than a small number of big commits. If you, and I like to say, if you reference more than one file in a commit, it's probably too big. All right, and so this means then that we are going to have a lot of Git committing going on, which is good. Now, that does raise the question, well, how should I deal with branches? And so this next tip is you should use branches freely, right? So every new feature and every new bug fix should be handled in a separate branch. And so when using subagents, meaning when multiple things are running in parallel, use work trees to ensure that the branches don't get confused. And then when something works and passes all tests, then you can merge it back into main. And so this is a great way to do things. Now, if this sounds like how a person would work, that is the whole point. If it sounds like how a team would work, that is also the point. The idea is that we are ensuring here that we're using best practices, that everything we do is in a separate branch, and we have tons of commits so that if we want to undo damage that we made mistakes on, we can do that pretty easily. Okay, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 more hints. Number 1 is use ruff regularly, meaning use ruff for linting. I should say not just regularly, after saving each file. Use ruff for linting to make sure that the code follows best practices. And also use ruff for formatting to make sure that we're writing in a standard way. And if you do this, then your code is going to look good, and ruff will also identify and remove code that you don't need. For example, if you do an import that's unnecessary, ruff will flag that or even remove that. And this just makes your code that much nicer and better, and also formatted the way that everyone in the Python community uses. All right, the last tip is a little more complex, but it's super important, and I didn't understand why it was important until just recently. And that is use Context7 to check all of your Python code, APIs, and best practices. What is this? What is Context7? So remember that an AI system like Claude Code, is trained at a certain point, and there is a cutoff for that training. And what it knew as of that training is its core knowledge. So whenever it was trained, that's the information it has about Python and about Python libraries. What if you're using a library that has changed since Claude was last trained? It either won't know, or it'll challenge you, or it won't be very good at it. For example, when Pandas 3 came out, it was constantly telling me, no, Pandas 3 is not out, or, oh, what's that interesting pd.call syntax? It had no idea what I was talking about. That's where Context7 comes into place. And so Context7, it is a commercial venture, although I've just been using the free plan. And Context7 is a sort of lookup documentation service for LLMs. It is for Claude Code and other AI systems. And so basically what you can do is you can say, use Context7 to check your code. This means that instead of just checking its own built-in training knowledge where the cutoff was long ago, it will go and check the latest and greatest and then be able to take advantage of that and make your code that much more modern, robust, and even secure, I would say. If you put all these things into your Claude.md, I promise you your code will already be better than it was before. It might even be better than the code you would write yourself. And you can go on then feeling confident that as you add new features to your application, it will continue to be readable, usable, and dare I say it, Pythonic. What hints and suggestions do you have for Claude Code in Python? Leave them in the comments. I would love to hear from you. I'm doing more and more with Claude Code. I'm going to be talking more about it in videos coming up here. So if there are topics you want to hear about, let me know. Meanwhile, thanks for watching, and I'll be back real soon with lots more about Python and pandas and everything in between.